Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Shorten Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.
From Mansur's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge, we're out to lunch with editor of the Baton Rouge Business Report, Stephanie Regal. It's business Baton Rouge style.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Regal. Welcome to Out to Lunch. Though Louisiana isn't known for being an IT hub particularly, Silicon Bayou has produced some pretty impressive tech companies over the years. Some that are not only helping clients better manage their data and run more efficiently, but others that are actually revolutionizing the way things are done and rewriting all the rules. Joining me is Mike Cormacy, president and co-founder of Watch Systems, a nearly 20-year-old IT company that is well known to law enforcement agencies around the country because of its flagship product, Offender Watch, a sexual offender management and community notification software that's used by more than 3,500 law enforcement agencies around the country. Before Offender Watch, there was no comprehensive registry for sex offenders. So think about what that means. Every jurisdiction and state had its own system for monitoring and managing sex offenders, and they didn't talk to each other. Well, Offender Watch has changed all that. Mike is originally from Cincinnati, Ohio, and got his degree in economics from Kansas State, but his wife is from South Louisiana, so when they had the opportunity to be closer to her home, they took it, and they've been here ever since. Mike, it's a great story, great company to have in Louisiana. Welcome to Out to Lunch.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here.
Thanks. With me and Mike at the table is Ben Charbonnet, a pioneer in the local IT community. Ben got his start as information systems director at the local CPA firm Postal Wade in Netterville in 1969, back when information systems meant something very different than it does today. In 1984, he went out on his own and founded CMA Technology Solutions, which shrewdly capitalized on the growing number of businesses that were just beginning to go digital at that time. CMA sold, installed, and serviced IBM equipment to business clients. Today, as the internet and cloud computing have changed the face of IBM and, of course, the whole computer industry in general, CMA has grown and diversified to provide a variety of hardware and software solutions for its customers across 3 states. Ben is a native of Baton Rouge. He is also a well-known runner locally, a race director in his spare time, and restores antique British cars, most recently a 1963 Porsche 356. Ben, great to have you here, too. Welcome to Out to Lunch.
Thank you very much, Stephanie. I'm looking forward to it.
Good. Well, Mike, I'm going to start with you. Offender Watch serves several functions. So it's an internet-driven integrate database where offenders can register, right? It monitors and tracks them across jurisdictional lines and automatically provides community notifications, say, when an offender's address is changed. So y'all have really changed the way sexual offender management is done.
At the local,
am I overstating it, or are y'all that great?
Most people think that law enforcement cooperate across jurisdictional lines. And over the years, you saw it with 9/11, many abduction cases. People will say, well, what does the agency on the other side of the county think or have information? And often you can't get it.
Wow.
So 20 years ago, we came up with this concept of using the internet as backbone, where every agency would be able to collaborate on a common record. And so that's what we've built. And when you think about it, 20 years ago, Facebook didn't exist.
Right.
So this is almost like a Facebook application for law enforcement to collaborate on bad people.
So cool.
Yeah.
Now, like 60% of law enforcement agencies are using it? Is that true?
We actually carry about 60% of the national offender population goes through the network at one point or another. So an example being statutorily, if an offender moves from East Baton Rouge to West Baton Rouge, East Baton Rouge has to notify West Baton Rouge. We streamline the process. All East Baton Rouge does is record that address, and the network automatically notifies the other county. So now they know the person's coming. I'm working on a project right now with ICE. So when ICE releases an illegal who's been convicted of a registrable sex crime, it will automatically notify the sheriff's office based on the address, and now they know the bad guy's coming.
Why just sex offenders? Is it because of the notification, the law that requires them to notify?
It's a good question. It's a combination of the two.
Yeah.
Nationally, offenders, based on the severity of the crime, have to come into a sheriff's office, police department, or a state once, twice, or 4 times a year based on what they were convicted of. So, in fact, a better way to look at it is there's 14 types of person files at the FBI. Sex offenders is one. Missing persons is another. But missing persons don't come into the sheriff's office and say, hey, I moved to a new address.
Right, I'm missing.
Right, or people of interest or suspicious individuals don't come in and say, hey, I got a new tattoo. All of those provisions apply to sex offenders. They have to come in anytime they've had a physical description change or change of their address. They're required to come in and notify so that a database can be updated and therefore the public aware of who's in the neighborhood.
So interesting. So many good questions I have to follow up. But Ben, I want to bring you into the conversation because when you hear about what a company like Watch Systems is doing, you realize, like, wow, how far, the whole IT world has grown in really just a short time since you founded CMA in 1984. And what was your original vision back then?
Well, my original vision was to provide quality professional services to companies, corporations. We don't do any individuals. It's all small to very, very large businesses. We have some international clients, actually. But at that point, the whole industry was changing.
Yeah.
The IBM PC came out in 1983, and that changed everything. So I was working with Postaway Netterville, and we had a large service bureau.
And y'all would have had like a mainframe computer at Postaway Netterville back in those days?
Yeah, it was a small multi-user system. It wasn't as big as a mainframe, but it was a big change when IBM came out with computers that could be affordable to smaller businesses. So the service bureau business was where you would bring your pay stub or your time cards in, and we would process the time cards, or we would do your inventory. So, and it was all back and forth like that.
Right.
And Postaway was the largest CPA firm, and so they kind of had a built-in customer base, and so it was very good. But when the IBM PC came out in about '84, I think it was, then you could buy a computer for about $3,000 and a program for another $500 or $600, and do your own payroll and do your own inventory. So at that point, I could see that there was a reason. Well, I could see that the service bureau business was going to decline, but then all these companies that were buying their own systems, they were going to need support.
Sure.
They didn't know anything about computers. And
so y'all were like the local IBM guys, right?
Yes,
I mean, you
we
serviced and supplied, and the only IBM guys.
They were.
In those days,
1984, that was visionary, man.
It was.
I'm telling you, no one saw the small PC thing taken off.
No, you really didn't. You really didn't. But
Ben was a visionary. I mean, we weren't going to have some schmuck on the show with you.
It is.
And it was amazing what people would do with these small machines. And back then, the operating system wasn't solid. So, I mean, the machines would lock up, and you'd have to reboot. Remember the old term, the blue screen of death? When
Right.
the blue screen came up and nothing happened, you had to start over. So when it first came out, it wasn't really, I want to say, ready for prime time. Mm-hmm. But people were very, very ingenious and creative. And IBM, they opened up the PC architecture so that other hardware manufacturers could build add-ons. And so that's where the networking came about. So you'd have one PC, and then you could tie other networks together. So you had more.
And over the years, y'all grew to provide those services
too?
too?
We sure did, yeah. So we were one of the very first IBM business partners in Baton Rouge. And what a business partner was back in those days is IBM realized, well, most people don't realize that IBM is a manufacturing company. Mm-hmm. They manufacture hardware. Mm-hmm. So to use the hardware, you have to have programs. So they were going into more smaller business, and they couldn't support the smaller businesses on that wasn't their business plan. So they associated themselves with local companies like we were,
right,
and in what they call a business partner program. So we'd go out together with IBM and hand in hand, and we would sell the hardware, the IBM hardware, and we would get a commission for that. Then we would sell our software or software package and all the support and installation
Yeah.
and conversion that went along with it. So it was a beautiful,
That's
it was
great.
a beautiful thing.
That is so
that
cool.
was really probably the thing that made us successful.
Well, speaking of technology, and of course everything's so different today, but Mike, you all actually designed the software. I mean, are you the person who came up with the software, and then you all still do this in-house, and you're constantly working on new software packages?
We've got 14 full-time and on-site developers. Great group of guys. You know, you shove Cheetos and Mountain Dew under the door, and they'll just work all through the night. You know? They're a very dedicated group of people. And, you know, the way we came up with the idea was we were always suspicious if the deputies were really registering as many offenders as they were. So I had the system send me an email every time they registered someone. And I was like, this is ridiculous. I'll just have it send it to me when they're around the office. And that's how we came up with the idea of send an email to a citizen
Okay.
based on an address proximity.
How do you all get paid? What is the model?
We have we started something 20 years ago. It was software as a service, so it's a SaaS model.
Okay.
And so we provide, the only thing an agency needs to do this is a PC with an internet connection.
Interesting. Yeah.
But Louisiana has been a pioneer in doing this. It's
Say that again. Louisiana's been a pioneer in
has
something
really
good?
It's been this goes back 20 years, and so when working with sheriffs across the state of Louisiana, the burden on them statutorily is very high.
Yeah.
So they had to find something that helped them comply with the law, and the reason is the public has a zero tolerance when it comes to not knowing where your sex offenders are. They have a zero tolerance for that. So there's it's been terrific way of leading the country, and this goes back when Mary Landrieu was in
Sure.
Congress, and David Vitter. I used to work constantly on educating them, and it was because the real true laws started here in Louisiana.
Wow.
Most people don't know that.
No, I certainly didn't. Ben, how has y'all's business model changed over the years? Obviously now with IBM has had to shift what it does because the whole computer world and with cloud computing. What are you all into now?
Well, our business has been evolving to more of service-based than hardware-based. I can remember when Postaway Netterville bought their first computer. It was like $125,000, and it had 7.5 megabytes of disk storage. So,
Gosh, that's hard
things
to
have
believe,
changed
isn't
very
it?
much. And
Yeah.
as the industry has changed, as the cost of hardware has come down and the capacities have gone up, we had to change our business model because you can't make a living on just selling hardware
Not
and
anymore,
a little
no.
bit of software services.
Yeah.
So as things have evolved, we have changed our business in that we still sell a lot of hardware, but it's bigger hardware. We don't sell much to small businesses, even though in the beginning it was kind of funny. We sold to anybody that would buy anything, but it was quite different back then.
And you have other partners now besides just
Yes.
IBM, isn't that right?
Oh yes, we go across the whole line. For a long time, we were pretty much 100% IBM, and then as IBM has changed, IBM sold their PC division,
Right.
and now have Lenovo and the servers. So we now sell. We sell all across the board. We sell a lot of storage, a lot of NetApp storage. We sell Cisco for communications and virus
Oh,
protection.
sure,
Oh,
sure.
yeah. That's a very, very big deal.
That's huge.
So we still do a lot of very high-end services when we sell a big machine, and there's a lot of components to integrate, different software vendors to integrate. We sell we have a group that does very high-end services.
You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. I'm talking to Ben Charbonnet of CMA Technology Solutions and Mike Cormacy of Watch Systems. We'll be right back after this very short break. You're listening to Out to Lunch. I'm Stephanie Riegel. I'm talking to Ben Charbonnet of CMA Technology Solutions and Mike Cormacy of Watch Systems. What is the competitive landscape for your respective companies? I mean, are there a lot of other companies doing what Watch Systems is?
We actually don't have a commercial competitor.
Not at all, none.
None.
It's a
No.
great world.
Yeah. But each state is statutorily mandated to provide something. So if you really think about it, I have 50 unique individual competitors that are only concerned with what happens within their boundaries. And the government business model is a very difficult one. They're very, the territorialness, the idea that, well, I don't really have to do anything for the state of Idaho. I'm Louisiana, so.
Right.
But those offenders are migrating all across the country all the time, and so there has to be some bridge, and so that's what we do, is we work as a partner. We're not really a vendor, we're a partner to state government. Much like Ben said earlier, we are the sex offender registry system for 18 statewide contracts.
Yeah, wow.
That means we're part of their IT department, we're part of their public safety group, the local law enforcement, so the Sheriff and Police Chiefs Association, we're integrated in Department of Corrections.
For those other 32 states, though, what are they using?
We have either some local presence in those states where we're working with the sheriffs or the police chiefs, or they're using or in the process of migrating towards some of our other programs. So they don't, what we did, much like what Ben has said, is we used to say, well, this is the whole thing, this is the only thing I offer. But once we started to realize that what communities needed was more accurate, unified information, what states need is a seamless transition from state to state, we've developed other tools that allow them to still maintain what they use as their core system. So it might have had a technical lifespan, and they're not done with it. Made a significant
a legacy
capital,
system.
right? A legacy system.
You don't have to start over.
Right, and so we come in with something that we can put on top of it that allows them to gradually transition so that we can get the ultimate goal, which is 100% of all the offenders in one environment so that local, state, federal agencies can use it. And I'll give you a great example. Got
Okay.
one more minute to tell you.
Yeah.
So a number of years ago, they had a guy in South Africa that was distributing child porn.
Okay.
And he was using DVDs and the United States Postal Service as his means of distributing it. Well, when Interpol seized his computer, the forensic group found that there was about 100,000 addresses in the United States that had taken this Postal Service package that had a DVD in it.
Wow.
So they have an investigative group at the Postal Service, and what they wanted to know was if they gave us all 100,000 addresses, if we would be able to bounce those against the historical address file to say, was there a sex offender ever living at that address at the time the package was delivered? So you can see the importance of having one national unified system so that you could identify the real beauty of what we have developed is that not only could I tell you who was living at an address during that time period, but I could tell you where they are now because he's now registered at a different jurisdiction.
Fascinating.
We're also developing new tools.
Fascinating.
Yeah, well, so you have to have that national file. The other thing we're developing are tools so that if you can get an email when someone moves within a mile of your house, wouldn't you want an email when they were on social media with your kid?
Of course.
So we'll be rolling that out here in the next couple of months nationally. And so
And do you get like a patent for something like that, or a
we've actually
trademark?
we actually filed for a patent because the way we're going about it is very unique. But again, it's something that, as a parent, 5 kids, I would want to know if someone was a bad person interacting, posing as someone else, especially if they're
course.
posing as a 12-year-old.
Oh,
Yeah, so
that's very impressive. Ben, what about your competitors? Who's out there?
Well, we don't have any real local competitors for hardware. We
Okay.
have national
So y'all
vendors.
still pretty much control the Baton Rouge market.
Well, I wouldn't say control, but we do a lot of business
Okay,
because
that's great.
we've been in business for 35 years, and we actually have some customers that were with us 35 years ago.
That's great.
But it's changing. The whole business is changing. People are going back to when I first started. a small business couldn't afford a computer, so you either did service bureau or you did online, where you had a remote terminal to the computer, to the big mainframe. And that was very expensive because then you had dedicated telephone lines, and it was not very fast and reliable and all that. So what has changed so much is that the internet. The internet has changed everything. Mike, you wouldn't be in business without the internet. And also, as I mentioned before, the hardware technology, the changes are made. I mean, the storage, you probably don't even know the number of terabytes of storage. A terabyte is 1 trillion. So, I mean, now, that's what it's measured in, and it's online and it's off in the cloud, which means it's off at a data center somewhere, but that's all connected via the internet. So without the internet, there'd be so many businesses that wouldn't be in business.
Of course.
So what's happened now is you have a small business that if I was consulting with a new business, I would tell them, find a package that's specific to your industry and buy a subscription to it online.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you, because they can, right? I mean, sure.
And you don't need. I have one of my very good friends is a veterinarian, and he was one of the pioneers also. He wrote his own software and all that, and so he's now has gone to an online system where everything is via the internet.
Sure, it's just easy.
As the industry changes.
Does that make a company like yours obsolete eventually?
Oh no, it doesn't make us obsolete, because you still have the local users. So what we've migrated to, and not completely, but it's becoming a bigger part of our business, is the services for supporting the local area, help desk.
Sure.
Because a smaller business, they don't have anybody on staff to help with just the daily problems, because you are going to have daily problems.
Right.
So they contract with us. We sell them a contract, and we're their level 1 help desk.
That's great.
So if the secretary has a problem with her printer, or her machine doesn't come on properly, she calls us, and we take care of the problem.
You mentioned data centers, and I think that's so interesting, because I was wondering what kind of servers, and what kind of massive servers up in the cloud somewhere is holding all that data that you talked about, Mike. I mean, do y'all ever worry about these data centers crash? I mean, there is a machine somewhere that is holding all of this information that is not just Watch Systems data, but I mean, Amazon's data and Facebook. I mean, is this sustainable? I mean, is it unlimited, infinite, that all of this information can be somewhere on machines, given that we're human beings and that the machines that are holding them are made by human beings, and there are natural disasters and wars and pestilence and all sorts of things that could...
It used to be, and I remember when I was first learning to drive, okay, cars didn't have the computer chips and stuff in them. Right? So, but you constantly had car trouble. Like, I remember my parents' van had an automatic choke, and so when it was cold, it took us forever to get the car started.
Sometimes the car
now you
start.
go outside, you put your key in, vroom, and you're driving out the driveway. You got heated seats.
Yeah.
Well, technology has come to the point where it's almost the same.
Okay.
We have a redundant backup system to the backup system. And the hosting environment that we have is actually a 3-level. So you have a production, a QA, and a development environment. And when we rotate them, so when we come out with a new version, the experience to the user is, they don't even realize it.
Wow.
I was actually in a hosting environment, and when the power goes out, you don't even realize it went to battery.
Right.
That is so cool.
It's the lights don't even flicker. It's that fast,
Seamless.
and those are batteries. I've got my new iPod Bud things that are wireless. Okay? You have them?
No,
You need them. They last like 5 hours, and it's this little thing that fits in your ear.
Really?
It's amazing what they've done with technology and power.
Yeah.
So when you look at what are the things that cause an outage, it's power. And we've gotten, as a country, and the world has developed this concept of rolling to a battery and redundancy that is so fast you don't realize it. So we invest heavily in the backup recovery environment, and it's because we have. Everybody
You have
is.
to.
You know, I mean, we're all into that.
And it's not just the batteries. I mean, you have a fully redundant system. I mean, you have two systems that are identical, and when you make a change, do a transaction on one system, it immediately makes a transaction on the other system. So one is sitting over here it's not idle,
Right.
but it's just mirroring the other system. So if you
Interesting.
have a failure on system one, then system two immediately comes up.
Interesting.
And back to the old thing about the cost of hardware has come down so much. You manufacture these things. I mean, in a disk drive
Right.
that holds, a billion characters of information the size of a quarter.
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. It
is.
really is.
I know I'm going to date myself, but back when I started, I was on an aircraft carrier with 80-column punch cards, paper cards, and that's the only storage you had.
It was different.
It wasn't different, but it's been a great evolution.
Well, Mike Cormacy and Ben Charbonnet, it's always inspiring to hear about cutting-edge technology coming out of South Louisiana and innovation. And we know we do food and festivals well. It's important to remember what sort of technological and intellectual capital we have here, too. So thank you all for upping the bar and keep it coming, and thanks for being here on Out to Lunch.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it, Stephanie.
It's delicious. The special today is particularly good.
It looks wonderful. My guests today on Out to Lunch have been Mike Cormacy, president and co-founder of Watch Systems and Offender Watch, and Ben Charbonnet, founder of CMA Technology Solutions. The producer of our show is Grant Morris. Our technical producer is Eric Merle. Our associate producer is Peter Raschuti, and our Baton Rouge business consultants are Charlie D'Agostino and Ann Edelman. If you want to know what we all look like, you can find photos from this show on our website, itsbatonrouge.la, and on our It's Baton Rouge Facebook page. These photos were taken by Carrie Hosford. You can find more of Carrie's photos at carriehosford.com. You can hear this show and past episodes of Out to Lunch wherever you get podcasts and at itsbatonrouge.la. Out to Lunch is a production of INO Broadcasting for itsbatonrouge.la and WRKF 89.3 FM. I'm Stephanie Riegel. Thanks for joining me. I look forward to meeting you again next week around the table here at Mansur's for more business Baton Rouge style on Out to Lunch.
Out to Lunch Baton Rouge is recorded live over lunch at Mansur's on the Boulevard in Baton Rouge. Mansur's is open for lunch daily 11 to 2, for dinner nightly, and for brunch on Saturdays and Sundays. Mitchell Foreman wrote and performs all the music on Out to Lunch. You can hear Mitchell's music anywhere great jazz is sold or streamed, and at mitchellforeman.com. Major support for Out to Lunch is provided by the law firm of Jones Walker, established in 1937 with over 375 attorneys in offices throughout the U.S., providing a comprehensive range of services to a local, national, and international client base. JonesWalker.com. And by Short & Associates, legal recruiters in Louisiana and Texas. And Orange Theory Fitness, delivering fitness results for a healthier world.